So today we have a very special treat. We're going to be covering Red Dead Redemption 2.
Arthur!
So let's go on into it. So let's start talking about Rockstar. You know them, of course, from their pedigree of creating GTA. Some of their smaller titles that they've made in the past include, L.A. Noire, Max Payne, Bully, Manhunt, The Warriors, all of which I'm a big fan of, except for Manhunt. I never actually played that one. They also made the Austin Powers Game Boy Color games. Going back in time a little bit, in 2010, Rockstar released Red Dead Redemption 1. It was critically a huge success, considered to be one of the best games of this generation, blah, 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 you know the deal. 8 years later, Rockstar decided to release Red Dead Redemption 2, which is actually a prequel to the first Red Dead Redemption. So, what's the verdict? Does it surpass the original, or is it not as good, And, the ultimate question, and this is kind of a spoiler for the end. I mean, spoiler alert, the game is good. The game is very good. And my argument I will be making to you today is that it is one of the best games ever made so far in gaming history. So let's talk about the game. So the first thing you'll notice in Red Dead Redemption 2 is just how gorgeous it is. It's a great looking game. The visuals, I've never seen a game that looked so gorgeous ever. It takes place in 1899, so the end of the 19th century. It takes place in America. It's kind of like a weird mishmash of many different states. You got kind of a feeling of like Louisiana. Some places feel more like Texas. Another place might feel like Virginia or something. It's kind of like a real mishmash of a lot of different parts of America. So you're playing as Arthur Morgan. He's actually the strong arm of the Dutch Van der Linde gang. He's pretty much Dutch's right-hand man. So Dutch is he's the leader of the gang. He's a very charismatic guy.
I've never been more proud of you than I am right now, brother. You're doing the right thing.
And, you're basically following around the gang on their adventure of trying to retire, basically. You know what I mean? So you're basically just trying to get money, robbing banks, robbing trains, extorting people, collecting debts. It's all about just getting money. It's all about money. For the most part. You inhabit what is a very detailed world. One of the most detailed worlds I have ever seen. There's just so much little nooks and crannies and little details everywhere that you're always just going to be like, wow, I can't believe they put such a neat little thing there for you to discover. There's a huge sense of discovery because there's so many little surprises to find in this very big world. In the world, so you're also gonna experience just like random things happening. There's a lot of scripted events that can just occur randomly to you while you're just wandering around in the world, which keeps everything fresh. And because there's a lot of traveling around, and so you need to have kind of things to break up the monotony of just riding your horse. And yeah, sure enough, there's a lot of little surprises you'll find along the way. It's not just a random gang like ambushing you, although that does happen. But you could find somebody who's like got bit by a snake, and you have to like suck out the venom, or just randomly somebody's being kidnapped, and you can save them, rescue them, bring them back home, and then there's a huge conversation you can have with the person there. That you could have just totally avoided if you just didn't happen to come across that.
This don't look good. What happened?
Medicine.
Here, drink up.
Very neat you're going to come across a lot of NPCs, obviously. So it's like GTA, you know, you have a whole world inhabited by NPCs, but they are a lot more interactive than with GTA. In GTA, you can pretty much just say good or bad things. If you start saying bad things to them, they'll start to run away or try to pick a fight. Same kind of thing happens here, but there's a surprising level of dialogue recorded for all of these people just walking around the world. You know, it's kind of rare to hear the same line twice, and even your character you play as, Arthur Morgan, he will say different things to different people constantly, and it stays very fresh. You have the option always to, you can either be nice to somebody or you can be mean to somebody. So you get to hear the different range of personalities that Arthur can have, which actually ties in with the morality system of the game, where, you know, if you're trying to be a good guy, it makes more sense to be saying nice things to people, like, hey, how you doing? Good morning, hey.
I have to say, life is pretty good.
Glad someone's on the up.
Ah,
Hey,
you know a good place, get some food?
not able to help you with that.
And if you're a bad guy, it makes a lot more sense to be like, hey, look at your fat butt, drunk loser. You know, you can verbally abuse people, and it's very fun.
You just follow like a blind dog, don't you?
Don't you test me, Morgan.
Think for yourself for once.
Why are you acting like this?
You ain't a child.
This ain't funny now. Every time.
And the voice acting is actually very good. Top-notch, solid performances. Arthur Morgan's actor does a very excellent job. Dutch Vanderlyn, John Marston, all of the main gang do an excellent job of portraying their characters. Really great voice acting.
This is the right call, Arthur. Take this. And this is about more than revenge for business long ago. They were talking about trains and detonators here.
And along those lines, we also have excellent lighting effects. Now, this goes back to how gorgeous the game is. I think really it is amplified by the lighting of the game. Like, if you're going through like a forest, one cool thing is you'll see like the sun rays kind of like shimmering through the leaves. You can see like when there's like a campfire, everything looks really cozy. You see like a warm flickering light on everybody's face. If there's like a very strong source of light, like the sun, and it's flashing through like, you know, somebody's ear, it does this, you know, the realistic thing of where you get that, you know, like you can see it right here, like the ear gets red basically because you can see through it because the lighting is going through it. Same with the nose and other parts of the body. It's a very like organic look, and the lighting really amplifies the look of this game. I'm telling you, it's an impressive feat what they do with the lighting. Speaking of the graphics, something that may not interest you, but I think is a valuable exercise or experiment you can do to see if you want to try it. I actually played this game with the HUD or the heads-up display off for the majority of the time. Now, the reason I did this was because I felt like the mini-map being in the corner and all the little health markers, ammo markers, and that kind of thing, your hunger meter, all that, I thought it really cluttered the screen, and I thought it also diminished how beautiful the game was. So there's a method of turning off the entire HUD and activating the mini-map when you press the down on the D-pad. So you don't have to constantly be going back and forth into the menu screen if you turn off the HUD. There's a way to do it. Maybe I'll make a video about that in the future, so you guys can do that. I really did enjoy playing the game a lot more without the HUD. It really makes you pay attention to the details of the world a little bit better and prevents you from falling into the trap of just watching that mini-map or going towards the line. That is a real problem with games like GTA and Red Dead even. I think you have to kind of exercise a little bit of discipline and turn that HUD off. You're going to enjoy the game a lot more if you're the type of gamer who really wants to soak in the atmosphere. If you're just trying to mainline through the main game, you might not want to do that because, you can find a good way to enjoy the story that way as well. But I think the game has a lot to offer for people who like to adventure and look around at things, like people like Zelda, that kind of game. You're really going to get a lot out of this game if you turn the HUD off. And I'll discuss that in another video of how to do that correctly. So yeah, then you also have the horses. Now, the horses are incredibly detailed and a lot more dynamic than they were in the first Red Dead Redemption. They feel very weighty. Their musculature, their musculature was very, pretty high tech for the time with Red Dead Redemption 1, but in 2 it's even better. The horses look very damn near real, and they act realistically as well. Like if you're, say, riding your horse around the swamp and you come across like an alligator, your horse is going to start to freak out. And if you continue to like push your horse too far, eventually it's going to kick you off, you know what I mean? And you're not going to have a very good relationship with your horse. And the horse is actually the main way you're going to be getting around in this game. Obviously, it's a huge world, so you need to get a good horse. You want to invest in a good horse. You don't necessarily need to buy it, but you can find them in the wild, and you can, wrangle them, you can lasso them, tame them, break the horse down, and, claim it for your own. You can steal somebody's horse, so you can buy a horse. Either way, you're going to want to upgrade your horse, because the first horse you get is rather slow, and it's going to help with the traversal of the world, because you get around a lot faster. Another little detail about the horses, which is fun, is that it's you can like run over a rock and your horse is gonna trip, and it will literally like beef like it feels so realistic when your horse falls down. It looks like a horse really falling, and it's almost unintentionally funny sometimes. We also have, so let's talk about the actual action in the game. So, obviously, being a Wild West shooter, we're going to enjoy some shootouts. And so, the deal is with shooting, is there's a lot of lock-on. So, as you are a sharpshooter in the rootin' tootin' Wild West, you actually have a lot of skill, I guess, with aiming. So, that's a good way of kind of explaining why we're just locking on to all your enemies. You press the left trigger, it immediately hones in on the enemy closest to your target reticle, and it'll kind of pop to them. But it works, it's fun, and there's a lot of really fun, awesome, dynamic reactions to getting shot that the enemies have. And I think that makes it interesting enough to really carry it through. It is a very long game, but just the look of the gunplay is enough to really kind of keep me going. This is very satisfying to get a headshot, and the shotgun, specifically the sawed-off shotgun, is very satisfying at close range, if you haven't done that yet. And yeah, like I said, the enemies will react to getting shot in specific places. This was actually in the first game, but it's actually been fleshed out a little bit more in this one. You shoot them in the shoulder, they'll grab their shoulder, maybe start limping, won't use that arm as much. You shoot them in the gut, they start bleeding out, they start grabbing their gun, eventually, maybe they'll pass out. Crucially, this is the most brutal of all of them. If you shoot somebody in the neck with a gun that's not too strong to kill them immediately right off, so you need like kind of a weak pistol, and if you shoot them in the neck in the right spot, they grab their neck, you see blood spurting out of their neck, they start like limping, and eventually they'll just fall over, and then they start gurgling. Absolutely brutal. And seeing that happen is quite a surreal experience in a shooter. It almost makes you feel kind of guilty. Now, as far as the mission structure, if you've played GTA, you will be very familiar with how Red Dead Redemption plays. You're gonna have a map, you're gonna see a little dot on that map, you're gonna go to that map, that dot on the map, and then a movie's gonna play. You're gonna watch a little short film, which is gonna give you a little bit of context about what you're about to do, and you're gonna get to do it. Now, the way this works is that the story is really good. So you're watching it as if you're watching like an HBO miniseries. You want to see how the story pans out. So that's really what's gonna keep you kind of pushing through. I'm hearing a lot of people playing this game and losing their momentum. Like, they just start hunting, and eventually they're like, oh, I got bored, like I drove my horse around too much. You really kind of have to focus on the story a little bit and give yourself a taste of that to keep you invigorated in the world. Very important, I think. Otherwise, though, the missions have a lot of variety. There's a lot of different things you'll be doing in each one. There's very few that are very repetitive. Sure, a lot of them will involve the shootout mechanics, but they're always, they're always set up in an interesting scenario, so that way you can, you'll be shooting people in the same way, but it'll be an interesting scenario. You want to see how it plays out. Now, as far as the writing in this game, also very excellent. We're talking about standout performance from a lot of these main characters, specifically Arthur, John, Sadie, Dutch, but a lot of people do very well. All the actors did excellent, and every character is actually very fleshed out. You're not going to have a whole lot of paper-thin characters. Specifically in your gang, they're all like very three-dimensional, and a lot of them, if not most of them, have a story arc that happens through the whole game. So you'll be playing it, they'll start out one place, there will be a conflict, there will be a change, and then at the end they've changed to something else. Very, a classical way of creating a story, but it is an effective way of getting you attached to these characters and making the story feel like something else, because by the end of it, you're like, oh wow, I can't believe I've gone through so much with these people and so much has changed. Like, the game captures that exceptionally well. In fact, every time you go to camp in the game, which is very cozy, by the way, it's like a very cozy feel, like you'll always be walking around. It's like if you ever played the Warriors, like your hangout, you always have to go back there in between your missions. It's a very cozy environment. It's a very, you feel safe, and you feel like, oh, I can't wait to see the people I know in camp. And you'll hear like many different conversations that they'll be having constantly. So, you'll, sometimes you might come to camp and John Marston's fighting with his wife or something about their kid. Another time, everyone might be having like a sing-along, So there's a huge range of the interactions you can have, and you'll hear two people talking, and if you really kind of just focus on them for a little bit, they can have a 3-minute long conversation.
Danger, then. I'm not making much sense, am I?
No. But somehow, you've summarized how I feel. It seems awful. And then, it seems the same as always. And then, it seems like there's just no other way. And I just...
We got out of worse situations than this. Done plenty of bad things that we've all forgotten about. Don't take Dutch's patter about redemption too seriously. We're doomed. Just like every other creature on this rock. But unlike them, we'll go down fighting.
Is that what you believe?
I don't know, son. I don't know what I believe. Apart from wishing I wasn't gonna find out sooner than I'd like. What do you think, Arthur?
I don't do too much thinking, Jose. Killing's more my thing.
I don't believe that for a second.
And it'll be a deep conversation that tells you a lot about their characters, so... don't be afraid to just stare at the NPCs as you're playing the game, because there's often a lot of little animations, little secret stories. It's very cool what they did there for what appears to be no reason other than just for the player being curious and just to really flesh out the world, make it feel real. And so everything becomes really you're attached to it like a person. Eventually people start dying in your gang, and when they do, you feel it for sure. You're like, I like that guy. I went on missions with that guy. He was a good guy. When it happens, it hits you. You're like, oh God. I remember there was a day after it, one person died in my camp where I was literally, I was thinking about it the next day. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened, Crazy that a game is able to capture that. It's just after, you're going up to an NPC and blowing his arms off or whatever, and then at the same time you're feeling empathy for the same digital person. So it goes to show just how next level the storytelling in the game is. So yeah, you can really get a lot out of this story. It's about 50 hours long. You know, for the full game, it can range depending on how you play it. For me, it took about 50 hours. And once I beat it, you know, I kind of spent a little bit more time in the world because I didn't want to leave. But you know, eventually you have your fill. You feel very full by the end of the game. It's a very complete story. There's not a lot of loose ends, considering, you know, there's the whole Red Dead Redemption 1 to kind of go back to as to how the rest of the story pans out. So, you know, even though it's 50 hours, I would recommend, though, that you take it slow. Obviously, you want to go to the story missions, and if that's the only thing that's keeping you playing the game, fine. Like, you can definitely just mainline the story. It'll probably be still a great time. But if you're the kind of gamer who likes to explore, find new things, take your time with the game, and the game will reward that because there's so much to find. So take your time, you know, hunt, you know, fish, just walk around the town, go to the movies even. There's a lot of little tiny moments that you can find in this game. If you're there to, you know, be just a part of another world, there's a lot there to discover. One feat of the game, which I think is pretty impressive, is like, you know, it's 2018, 2019 now. We have so many games we have to play, so many excellent games we have to play. I haven't even beaten Breath of the Wild, Zelda Breath of the Wild yet. And after I beat Red Dead Redemption, first thing I thought was, I want to replay this game. I hadn't expected in my head that I would think I wanted to replay any game over 20 hours, you know, considering my backlog of games that I have to play. But yeah, this game made me want to replay it. And after I beat it, I was playing it for like 10 more hours, guys. It's just an enjoyable world to be in, and it just feels good. Everything is so weighty, and the physics tied with the animations really kind of make it a fun game to just walk around in. I think technically it's a benchmark for games as like a big budget Hollywood medium for storytelling. I mean, obviously we have games like Uncharted already out, and I will tell you, I feel like there's moments of this game where I felt like I was playing an open world Uncharted. That's how good the animations were. That's how dynamic a lot of the unscripted events are. It's so much is happening to you, like from the game. The game's just like washing over you. It feels like there must be a direction here, but a lot of it's just, it's dynamic. All the systems in the game dynamically working together. And that's what makes this game, I think, so next level. It's a combination of the lighting, the graphics themselves, the animation, the physics engine, the acting, storytelling, world building, context. There's newspapers. There's like 70 newspapers you can read. All of these things, weather effects, okay? All of these things work together. These are all things that we see in real life. So having them in a virtual world, kind of pushing games to reach the next level of like, where is reality? Like, what makes reality what it is? It's like the dynamic of the outside weather. It's the light, the feeling of light and the sunlight. I mean, this is stuff that we don't feel in games normally, but this game is scratching the surface of ultimate realism. So that is where I stand on the whole game as a whole. On a holistic level, all of those systems works so well together. I swear to God, guys, you know those moments like when you're in the say you're like hiking or something, and you reach the top of a mountain or something, and you'll see like a gorgeous view, a panorama, and maybe there's like really dramatic clouds and the sun is just in the right spot and everything is just so beautiful. You experience that in reality, and you get this kind of a feeling like, oh, you know, this is like God, you know, or the universe, or whatever you want to think it is. There's a lot of times while I'm playing Red Dead Redemption where I get that feeling, where the lighting is just right, the weather is just right. You know, what happened is just right. I came across somebody who said the right thing at the right time, which struck me in the right way. There's so many little moving parts to create these moments where you can't even process it all at once because it's just so much. You're not thinking like, oh wow, the weather looks so good right now. No, you're just like, oh my god, this is such a dramatic scene that I'm experiencing right now. And that can just be any random moment in the game, just because of how beautiful it looks. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a scripted mission event. This is just while you're just wandering around, you can just get a peek of the sunrise and the clouds suddenly get beautiful, and it's just you and your horse, and you get like you get a feeling. The game makes you feel something.
De la sierra morena, cielito lindo, vienen bajando un par de ojitos negros, cielito lindo de contrabando. De la sierra morena, cielito lindo, vienen bajando un par de ojitos negros, cielito lindo de contrabando. Ay, 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 canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegra.
Rockstar, you knocked it out of the park again. Excellent work. Does it surpass Red Dead Redemption 1? I would say, hell yes, absolutely. It's 100 times better than Red Dead Redemption 1. When I played the game, when I was done with it, I felt strongly about it. I felt like it was the best game that I had ever played, just on an objective level of like, no other game has done what it does to the level that it does. I'm sure future games will reach that, but where we are now, like, we're not going to reach this level for at least until the next generation. I honestly think it's the best game ever made thus far. So that's an A+, baby. Red Dead Redemption 2. That's a game for you.
You're a funny fella, Arthur. Real funny. Why you act all sour?